Ladies and gentlemen, we conclude day one of the Huddle 2020 with a session titled Between Jazz and Jaunpuri, Finding Music's Middle Ground. Please welcome the artists on stage, Anil Srinivasan, pianist and educator, and Sikkil Gurucharan, musician.
பல்லாயிரம் பல்லாயிரம் கோடி கோடி அண்டங்கள் எல்லா திசையினுமோர் எல்லையில்லா வெளிவானிலே நில்லாது சுழன்றோட நியமம் செய்த தோர் நாயகன் நில்லாத சுழன்றோட நியமம் செய்தோர் நாயகன் சொல்லாலும் மனத்தாலும் தொடரொணாத பரஞ்சோதி 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 அல்லாஹ் 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 சொல்லாலும் மனத்தாலும் தொடரொணாத பரஞ்சோதி ஈசன் வந்து சிலுவையில் மாண்டான் எழுந்து இயர்த்தனன் நாள் ஒரு மூன்றில் நேசமா மரியா மக்தலேனா நேசமா மரியா மக்தலேனா நேரிலே இந்த செய்தியை கண்டாள் ஈசன் வந்து சிலுவையில் மாண்டாள் எழுந்து இயர்த்தனன் நாள் ஒரு மூன்றில் நேசமா மரியா மக்தலேனா நேரிலே இந்த செய்தியை
It's the last slot. So we decided there's been a lot of conversation the whole day, so we might as well start with song. As Gurucharan was singing, many of you I know caught on to some of the lyrics. And the truth is that we started with Ave Maria. It went into a Tanam and Shankarabharanam, and then he actually sang a song on Allah, which is composed by Subramanya Bharati. And then on to something else, which is not part of the script, but he will tell us what that is. And then we came back to it. And the point that we wanted to start this entire thing on finding music's middle ground is that as musicians today, we don't have a choice We have to engage with what's happening. But frequently we are being asked whether we are left wing or we are right wing. Frequently we are pushed into positions where we have to identify with one part of the binary. If we are not, then the other part starts heckling us into being part of whichever part of the binary this is. And if you say nothing, it is counted as being pliant and flexible, and you really don't count. We are here to tell you that we are neither left wing nor right wing. We focus on what we do. In this country, there is a huge space for people who are neither wings, who just prefer to walk instead. Neither left nor right, we can walk in the center, and that's the middle ground that we want to occupy. Music has always taught us one thing, and it's about compassion. That if there is any side that has anything that requires us to expand our empathic universe, we need to expand our empathic universe. So I wanted to start this by saying that it didn't matter to us what the lyrics were. It doesn't matter to us what the politics of the lyrics are. Technically speaking, if you start analyzing these lyrics, there's actually no politics in it at all. It just describes a particular sentiment. This describes a particular sentiment, and it's all very beautifully encapsulated in the type of structure that the music evolves. And that's frankly the space that musicians like to be in. Music does live up to its cliche of being bigger than all of these things. We keep saying, oh, music is this universal language. It is a universal language. The greatest gift that music has given us is that it allows us to believe in multiple truths. Your truth and my truth, and it allows us to reconcile these truths and create a reality where both of us can live extremely compassionately towards one another. So I'd like to formally start this by offering the entire conversation that we are having to the gift that music has given us, which is the ability that music has in being able to foster compassion and expand our empathic universe. And that's the first part. On this is the point where you should be WhatsApping the people who left the session thinking it's just music and they do not have to stay, that they're missing something pretty great. I mean it. Charan, what was it that you sang which was not part of the script? I just wanted you to tell everybody about that.
Yeah, the raga or the scale that I performed was majorly in Senjuriti or Kurunji, which is derivatives of the Shankarabharanam or the Harikambuji scale in Carnatic music. As long as there were no lyrics, music was an abstract expression. It was marked by syllables that have no meaning. When I break into a raga alapana or a thanam or swaras or sargam, there is no meaning to what I'm actually singing. But when lyrics start happening, the dimension changes. So there you got Nadavindu Kaladi, which is a composition by the 15th century poet Arunagiri Nadar. And the same scale, I rendered two songs of the 20th century poet and freedom fighter Subramanya Bharati, one on Allah and the other one on Jesus. And Subramanya Bharati was quite a neutral person who loved composing poems on whatever he saw and enjoyed, be it nature, his favorite feminine divine or Parashakti or Lord Krishna or the nation, patriotism, as well as Allah and Jesus. So music is, for us, it's beyond lyrics.
By the way, he's going to test you on all the raga names that he gave. I hope you all took notes. So he put me in a place which takes on to the next point, which is that music rarely ever comes from one place. You take the piano, for example, is my favorite example. Most people end up calling the piano a Western instrument, for example. It isn't. The origins of the piano, its ancestors, technically one part of it, you could call it the mother part of it, comes from the yar or the harp, which is part of the southern South Asia spectrum. In fact, Jaffna is named after the harp. It's called yarpanam. And there's another instrument which is Central Asian, called the dulcimer. We know it as the santoor in Kashmir. Both of these instruments, through nomadic traders, travelers going westwards, combining in various different forms. And that's why you have the shape of the piano like that. It's the harp overlaid on top of a santoor. It's not because one fine day the designer got up and decided he likes curves. It's really because of the way it is. And that's come back to us as the piano. So if you really look at even the basics of an instrument. The violin, for example, comes from, many of you outside zoos would have seen this guy playing, in Tamil we call it the Kottanguchi violin, or something that's played out of a copra. But essentially that's an instrument called the Ravana Hatta. And that's gone westwards, become the Rococo fiddle, become the violin, and then come back. So music really doesn't belong to one place. No community, no region, no demographic can claim ownership over music. One of the things we frequently do is that we find that the moment a piece of music is created, it belongs to the world. It no longer belongs to the community, or it's not, oh, it's my composition. There's nothing which is mine. Everything is just actually being part of the continuum. And an example of this is this particular thing. Incidentally, this is very relevant because the Ravana Hatta is GST exempt, but the violin is not. The yar and the santoor are GST exempt, but the piano is not. Just wanted to put that on record. But this is the UK national anthem. My apologies to whoever's from the UK. I'm sitting down and playing it, but it's just the tune. That's the UK national anthem. Gurucharan and I, and whoever's learnt Carnatic music, would have learnt it in the following way.
Santatam pahi mam sangeeta shyamale sarvadare. Santatam pahi mam sangeeta shyamale sarvadare. Janani santatam pahi mam sangeeta shyamale sarvadare. Chintitartha prade chitrupini shive. Chintitartha prade chitrupini shive. Shri Guru Guha Sevite Shiva Mohakare. Santatam pahi mam sangeeta shyamale sarvadhare.
And that is the genius of Muthuswami Dikshitar, one of the great trinity of composers from Carnatic South Indian classical music, and composed in the late 18th century, the beginning of the 19th century, listening to a British band playing God Save the Queen. Now, luckily, Twitter didn't exist. So nobody expressed dissent or protest or problematics or anything with it, and it's become part of the literature. Like I said, the moment a tune is created into the universe, then the universe owns it. It's not owned by anybody else. It's going to be very difficult to imagine that situation today. I mean, if anybody takes the national anthem, let me not even get into the topic, right? So the reason that we say this is that music really doesn't belong to the community. And another great example is this Nocturne by Chopin, and I'll just play the first phrase. My wife told me that if I say Chopin correctly, people will think that I know my stuff, so I'm going to say that again. I'll play the first line of that, but that first line found its way all the way in Bengal and in North India when Kundanlal Saigal decided to take that melody and make it into a very famous film song of the 1940s, which then found its way south and became another very popular composition that Kalki Krishnamurti put lyrics to. And now it's all gotten so confusing that nobody knows who owns this tune. Luckily, Chopin's not around, right? But when I play the tune, and then he will sing two lines from each of both from the Hindi original and the Tamil, that we know it, and now it's part of classical context, you get this idea of music not being from one place.
Balam आया तुम आए பூங்குயில் கூவும் பூஞ்சோலையில் ஒரு நாள் பூங்குயில் கூவும் பூஞ்சோலையில் ஒரு நாள் மாமையில் மீதே மாயமாய் வந்தாள் மாமையில் மீதே மாயமாய் வந்தாள் பூங்குயில் கூவும்
And all of it is actually just the same tune. If I were to notate it, it's exactly the same thing. The first point we made was on music allowing us to expand our empathic universe. And I think the more and more we come across polarization and the binary, especially on social media, and the kind of warfare that people are inflicting upon one another, I feel like just saying, listen to the music, because the music is telling you to expand your mind. Music doesn't belong to anyone and doesn't belong to any specific region, and yet, unfortunately, we have started infusing music also with the invective of political polarization. Throughout history, whenever there has been the idea of inequality or inequity, music again has been the way that humankind has expressed itself and corrected that inequality. The African Americans taken to the American continent decided that they would create music of their own. They did not want to follow the classical, canonical, Western classical tradition. And so we had the blues, and the blues were blue because people were depressed. It is music of alienation. And soon, around the mid-19th century, when slavery was abolished, you had all the African Americans in New Orleans, for example, going into this place called Congo Square and retaining their African roots, bringing polyrhythmic ideas, bringing improvisation, bringing the entire idea of enjoying music as opposed to all the time venerating it. But they also put into it some of the harmonies and some of the harmonic ideas that they got from churches. And so you had gospel mixing with polyrhythms from Africa, and therefore you had the birth of jazz. And when you really think about jazz today, we think of it as this really sophisticated thing, you know. And there's, of course, because there's a discourse on everything, there's a discourse on white jazz and how white people have appropriated jazz. But we question this very term of appropriation. I think music really belongs. If you want to take jazz and you want to do something with it, go ahead and do it, right? As long as it's good. Duke Ellington has this very famous quotation, Duke Ellington being a great jazz legend. There are only two kinds of music in the world. There's the good kind and the other kind. All you can do is work hard and hope that it is not the other kind. So, and jazz, therefore, marks the movement. It is such a beautiful fructification of an entire group of people, an entire community saying, this is how we wish to express ourselves and establish our identity. When discussing it and researching it, and we started talking about parallels and things like the Tamil Isai movement, when in the 1940s, you had an entire group of people in Tamil Nadu saying Carnatic music is becoming largely about Telugu and Sanskrit compositions, and where's Tamil gone and doesn't represent our culture. And while it's not the same kind of protest, it's more linguistic, you again have a bunch of people going through struggle, going through protest, but then ultimately establishing their identity, ultimately bringing in an expression of who they are, and you have Tamil Isai becoming a huge thing that is adding to the vocabulary. Every time there is inequality, music makes the world more inclusive. Every time there's inequity, one note, one chord, one song can change the entire narrative and make it about inclusiveness. And we thought we'll create something with you here. I said, when we were talking about jazz and we were talking about Tamil, I said, okay, let's combine Tamil and jazz and put that together. And that's something that we created in this room with you. And that's the identity, and that's the spirit of the moment of everybody in this room at this moment, right? So I'm going to have somebody from here call out a tune that you like very much. I'm seeing some people here who know music very well, so I'm really frightened of asking this question, but somebody call out a tune that you like. Alai Payude. So let's take that, okay?
தெளிந்த நிலவு தெளிந்த நிலவு தெளிந்த நிலவு பட்ட பகல் போல் எரியுதே தெளிந்த நிலவு பட்ட பகல் போல் எரியுதே திக்கை நோக்கி என் இரு புருவம் நெறியுதே கனிந்த உன் வேணுகானம் கனிந்த உன் வேணுகானம் காற்றில் வருகுதே கனிந்த உன் வேணுகானம் காற்றில் வருகுதே கண்கள் சொருகி கண்கள் சொருகி ஒரு விதமாய் வருகுதே கண்கள் சொருகி ஒரு விதமாய் வருகுதே
And it's every time we try these kinds of things, right? So this was not the tune we'd planned. We keep coming back to this point that you can have your truth and I can have my truth, and we can both believe in each other's truths, and I don't have to ram down my truth down your throat, and you don't have to ram yours down mine, right? So, and there are ways of all of us speaking together, and that's where the beautiful term from music, right? Harmony. You can actually talk in harmony. It's entirely possible without shouting or screaming at the top of the lungs, because I'm not sure if the nation really wants to know. I think at this point of time, the nation wants to listen. And if we keep shouting, where are we going to listen? I spoke about inequality and how, am I supposed to watch this clock? Lata, is this? But this clock was set at 23 minutes when it started, so I'm sure we had more time than that. Okay. Anyways, the last session, you don't have a choice because you've got to let this session finish and then go to dinner. So anyway. We spoke about inequality. I'm just going to request Charan to sing a couple of lines from this very famous song and give a little background about Dandapani Desikar. Because this song, to me, again, represents this entire idea that I was talking about in jazz, which is the idea of music and lyrics getting together to express that inequality, but in such a powerful, such a moving way.
So Dandapani Desikar was a early 20th century musician / composer who was a very major name to emerge out of the Tamil Isai movement that Anil spoke about. It was kind of a resurgence of Tamil lyrics into the classical Carnatic music or the South Indian classical music performing art system. And he not only took lyrics from the past, from the 6th century texts, but he also started composing new lyrics. And the major point of contention from the already existing practitioners of Carnatic music was that there was not enough material in Tamil that we can sing in concerts. So Dandapani Desikar was a prime force in trying to break that disadvantage by composing a lot of songs within the Carnatic music system. And he also acted as many mythological figures in movies and became a star on the screen. And that's another reason why masses kind of got into Carnatic music through Tamil Isai. So this song is from Nandanar Charitram. He played a character called Nandan, or a man from a lower caste trying to find his way into the temple. And the song loosely translates into, "Can I come in?" பூமியில் ஈனனாய் பிறந்தேனே, பூமியில் ஈனனாய் பிறந்தேனே, ஒரு புண்ணியம் செய்யாமல் இருந்தேனே, சுவாமி உன் சந்நிதி அடைந்தேனே, பவ சாகரம் தன்னையும் கடந்தேனே, கரை கடந்தேன், சரணம் அடைந்தேன், தில்லை வரதா எந்தன் பரிதாபமும் பாபமும் தீரவே நானங்கே வருகலாமோ ஐயா, நான் வருகலாமோ ஐயா.
There have been repetitive references in musical literature bringing us all the time back to Middle Earth. And we love using that metaphor of Middle Earth. I think everybody here knows Lord of the Rings. If you don't know Lord of the Rings, too bad. As I keep saying, you don't have to be on either side of the spectrum. You can actually have a nuanced view by being in the center. These are compositions, most of the compositions that we've been referring to today have been compositions that to us, as we started by saying, represented music, and music being this sort of uber truth. And it really didn't matter what particular dimensions it took. As long as it performed that job of uniting people together, we should classify it under Duke Ellington's good kind of music. In terms of coming to the center, there's also been repeated references in literature, again by some of the poets that we kept talking about. And so we're going to end, no problem. We're going to end on that note. The first one, and we'll just do a couple of lines of each in the interest of time, is Yadu Moore Yavarum Kelir, which I'm going to allow Charan to translate. But the second is the most delightful to me because this was taught to us by his daughter, who's all of what, 5? Yeah. And I think sometimes it's in the mouths of the children that you actually get a huge reflection on what we should really be focusing on. It's Hind Desh Ki Nivasi. You can read what you want to read into it, but the more and more, the deeper we get into music, the more we realize we're really just one community. It's just this whole huge community. We keep saying Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam, but if you really want that to mean something, you've got to allow music to actually speak to you. We have unfortunately entered an era where even when somebody is presenting fabulous music to you, you're busy WhatsApping your friends. Everybody is so obsessed with doing the latest update on Facebook that you actually don't see that the communication is happening right in front of your eyes. You don't have to report everything, by the way. The nation really doesn't want to know. So I'm going to do the exercise that, and since it's the last session of the day, and I need to wake up some of the people here, this is an exercise we do with his daughter's age group in schools. And I'm going to make you all do this because it will also wake you up. Can you just all rub your hands like this, please? And if you can take your hands up, bring them down again. See, that feels good, no? Take your hands apart. I will count to 3. I'll say 1, 2, 3. On 3, you're going to clap. Okay? 1, 2, and 3. Excellent. 5-year-olds get this right, so don't feel so happy about yourself. But mostly, what happens is that it's, the few people who are clapping ahead of time is what's happening. We are rushing to the answers section of the textbook before we've even finished reading the questions. Let's not be in a hurry. And that's the last lesson from music, is that you need to pause, you need to reflect, and you need to listen, right? So we will do Yadum Moore and we will do Hindes Ki Nivasi, and we're going to do it in Jaunpuri. And there's a reason we're doing it in Jaunpuri, because Jaunpuri does not belong to Carnatic music. It comes from North Indian music, and we've adopted that, and we've made it South Indian. It's kind of like taking biryani and then calling it vegetable biryani. No such dish actually exists, but we've created one anyway, right? So similarly, we will do this. I'll say the 3 things again. It's just only 3 very simple points we made today. You don't have to be on either side of the binary. You can just pause, reflect, and create your own opinion on things. Don't feel forced. I think the only thing we need to learn is this idea of creating a more empathic universe. Compassion. If you really adopt that lens, I don't think there is any contradiction in your head after that. The second point we made was really that music itself does not, that's what it teaches you, is that does not belong to any space, any particular space or any specific community. Instruments don't have countries of origin. It's just tags we give it. And the last point we're making is let's make this community more inclusive and let's actually listen. So time's up, so we'll stop with the song.
So I'll be rendering 3 lines from Yadumure Yavarum Kelir, written by a poet called Kaniyan Pungundran almost 2,000 years ago, from the Sangam age of Tamil. So the 3 lines translated in English means, to us, all towns are our own, everyone our kin. We marvel not at the greatness of the great, still less despise we men of low estate. யாதும் ஊரே யாதும் ஊரே யாவரும் கேளீர் யாதும் ஊரே யாவரும் கேளீர் யாதும் ஊரே யாவரும் கேளீர் யாதும் ஊரே யாவரும் கேளீர் பெரியோரை வியத்தலும் இளமே மாட்சியின் பெரியோரை வியத்தலும் இளமே சிறியோரை இகழ்த்தல் அதனினும் இளமே பெரியோரை வியத்தலும் இளமே சிறியோரை இகழ்த்தல் அதனினும் இளமே யாதும் ஊரே யாவரும் கேளீர் हिंद देश के निवासी हिंद देश के निवासी सभी जन एक है हिंद देश के निवासी सभी जन एक है रंग रूप वेश भाषा चाहे अनेक है रंग रूप वेश भाषा चाहे अनेक है बेला गुलाब जूही चंपा बेला गुलाब जूही चंपा चमेली बेला गुलाब जूही चंपा चमेली प्यारे प्यारे फूल गूंथे माला में एक है प्यारे प्यारे फूल गूंथे माला में एक है हिंद देश के निवासी सभी जन एक है रंग रूप वेश भाषा रंग रूप वेश भाषा चाहे अनेक है निवासी देश के निवासी हिंद देश के निवासी सभी जन एक है सभी जन एक है सभी जन एक
Our closing statement of the day is really that he can have his truth, I can have mine, you can have yours. Art is a higher truth than all of these things combined, and it allows us to coexist in a common sphere. Art is the only truth we know, and the truth shall set you free. Thank you very much. There's apparently Q&A. Yes, sir.
This composition that you played in response to a request from the audience, it had a few bars from Summertime. Why did you pick Summertime?
I wanted to take a structure of a composition that was obviously rooted in jazz, and I played the tune itself so that everybody here knows which tune it is that I'm taking the reference from. So what I did is take the harmonic structure of Summertime and superimposed it on Alaipayude, which I kind of engineered it on the spot. I tend to think a lot, which is why my hairstyle is what it is. So, and I wanted to play Summertime only because I wanted to show you which composition I was taking the bass from, right? There's a question in the back.
Hi, my name is Adarsh. So my question is, you talked a lot about how music is intrinsic to human nature and identity. And given that, don't you think it inevitably lends itself to polarization? And wouldn't that continue if people can use it as a means of identifying with people and rousing their emotions?
I didn't catch the last part of what you said. If you could speak into the mic, please.
Yeah, if politicians can use art, music or even art as a means of rousing emotions, as a means of identifying with a people group, won't they continue to polarize it?
So we can answer it in two ways. One is, thankfully, politicians haven't discovered music yet. Unfortunately, too many musicians have discovered politics. That's what's happened. But in terms of politicians using music to, even if music is used to polarize, music will find a way to equalize. And we've constantly believed in it. Whatever polarization is happening, if art creates any form of polarization, which it shouldn't, but if it does, such polarization will be short-lived. And we are so confident about the language of art that even if for a short term it looks like people are veering towards one side, it will bring them back to the center. So we are very confident about the power of art to do that. So I would say less of invective, less of polarized conversation, and more of music, please, is what we would say. Both. I think now a lot of research is emerging both in terms of the connection between neuroscience and music, on community development in music, on demographic and music, that more and more of these kinds of things that music tends to bring, it certainly brings blood pressure down, so I think it has a good effect. So I would say, in our case, both a combination of faith and evidence. Yes, ma'am.
Should I, since I have the mic in me?
Yes, please. Sorry, I didn't see you.
No worries. So first of all, what a stunningly moving session that we've had.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you so much for ingraining the value systems that we've been brought up with. The rest of the country needs to hear it. My question is, in these testing times that we live in today, with the country quite polarized and divided in their opinions, what direct part can the arts play? I'm asking you this because, just to give you a little context to this, I'm a designer by profession. We just came back from Black May Fashion Week. For the same, we recorded a 13-minute soundtrack, which I sang with Sabah Azad and a few other musicians. It costs money to be patriotic, and I have to pay from my pocket. Yeah. So even if the entire art community, artists, musicians, actors, well, if they stop acting and be real for a change, if they all come forward and really believe in art and its higher purpose and try to trickle it down into the rest of the country, how could we actually make this happen? How is it possible?
The answer lies in education. I mean, some of you know this already. I'm deeply involved in education at the primary level, and a lot of other professionals in this country are. And the more we look at things like art and music in the classroom, right? And I'm not talking about the fancy classrooms of international schools. I'm talking about grassroots, you know, in some of our tier 3, where the actual talent resides. You will find that music and art is actually bringing a lot of children together and actually costs nothing. I mean, a simple exercise like that, I can tell you the two things it did. So many people sat up and smiled. I don't know if you noticed, right? Those WhatsApps and Facebooks actually left your consciousness for that, even that 30 seconds that it did. So look at what I did very secretly, right? So, And it is in these moments, it is in these interventions, and it is in these ideas of creative expression at its best, right? And I'm not going into the subtle nuances of design versus art versus music, but I'm saying at the grassroots, where art intervention in classrooms, art intervention in even marginalized communities is creating that wave. And I believe that wave is getting bigger and bigger, right? Unfortunately, most of us are stuck in this social media bubble, and we tend to think of that in a sort of overweighted fashion. The actual country is living outside of that. And I think the more you spend time in those environments and those classrooms, you will find that art is bringing the answer. And both of us are hopefuls. So both of us believe that the change is going to happen.
Well, I'm also an ardent optimist like you are. My question was more in terms of the immediate impact. Like, for example, I genuinely feel, this is my point of view, people might differ from mine, I genuinely feel that our democracy is threatened because our freedom of speech is sort of paralyzed a bit. There are CA protests all over the country. There are friends of mine who are out there risking to, get beaten up, risking their careers to be in jail, because that's the eventuality, they all know it. What can we do today to mobilize people to be more empathetic, be a little more informed, and not just make idiotic, impulsive decisions? What can we do as the art community?
I mean, all of us are with you on that. All of us are braving these various things to raise our voices, actually. But I think the simple answer, and this again, a child told me this in one of the classrooms we work with, and I think it's the answer: let's start spreading good news. I think too much of alarm can be stemmed if we create one of the children, in fact, Mukund Padmanabhan is here, we both teach at a college called Kriya University, and one of the students in college came up with the idea of saying, can we create an app called the Good News Network, right? I think those are you said you're a designer, I think these are the design interventions that we should be investing in, or even a good people network, right? And there's so many people doing good work, sir, that a lot of us don't know about. We are only getting to hear, as I said, the polarized extremes. We're not getting to hear the middle majority, which is working very hard, which just wants to do what they do and focus on what they do and do a little bit better every day. I think the more we create a voice for that, and the more we start spreading good news and good people, I think all of this will disappear. This is to answer it in Mr. Ram's language, this is more based on faith, not on evidence, but I think we'll have to try, right?
It's worth the effort. Thank you so much.
Can I ask my question?
There's somebody else who raised their hand here first.
Yeah, so while I agree that music is stunning and your music was stunning and can really move, it is, after all, a collective human process. So it is going to be riddled by social processes. And there are many examples in history, whether it's in the US or in India, in classical music, dance, so on, where such processes have resulted in exclusion. And I mean, there's this more recent example of the issue that T.M. Krishna has raised through his book and so on. So if we ignore these social processes, we might be blind to lessons from history, right? And that might affect the creative process itself.
Yeah, so I don't think we made the statement that we want to ignore any inequity or ignore any form of exclusion. I think all we're trying to say is if we can adopt the lens of inclusion, right, it will allow us to be, in fact, we are agreeing with that. We are agreeing with whatever you were saying. We're saying that there has been a lot of exclusion, and this is not only in music, this is in every single sphere of social activity in India. I mean, we are who we are, right? So rather than look at only the negative of it, what we are trying to say is, can we start changing the discourse, and can we use the same music towards inclusiveness? I think that's all we are saying, which means it agrees with what everybody else is saying on that as well. Yes, sir. This is the last question.
The incidents of violence among the prisoners has come down with your music. Even the mentally challenged people also benefit. And in animal husbandry, the output of the milk has been dramatically and drastically increased with the music. So let it all be music. True.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much.